Homeowners are coming to us knowing that they live in a house that is probably a tear down.
Okay.
Which is not.
What's the price point on that house, do you think, that a lot of these tear downs?
I mean, we just paid $2 million for a lot.
All right, episode 26 of the Deal Ranch podcast. Vernon Knight, we've had a little bit of jumping around this morning, but appreciate you coming on, having me here in your office in Charlotte. So you guys are a reputable and one of the most prestigious luxury custom home builders in the Charlotte market, and obviously you guys do quite a bit in Charleston as well, which we can talk about.
That's correct.
You are the founder of Knight Residential Group. Do you want to give a brief overview about yourself and the company and the modern date, and then we can kind of go back in time as to how you started it?
Yeah, sure. So we have an office here in Charlotte, and then we have an office down on Kiawah Island in South Carolina. Founded the company in 2013 after working for about 10 years with at the time they were a commercial construction company, but I had created a little residential business inside that commercial company. Sort of cut my teeth on remodels for probably 10, 12, 13 years, and then we were fortunate when I went out on my own, we timed it really well with the market sort of coming back to what it is now. And, the market somewhat shifted from being heavy remodels in Charlotte to really becoming a new construction sort of mecca, if you want to call it. And we took advantage of it. Someone took had some faith in us hired us to build a new construction home for them, and we started that project, and then it just kind of ramped up. So now we're, we probably have 13 employees in Charlotte. 8 of those are directly focused on building homes, like six build. We call them builders.
Yep.
Other folks might call them superintendents. They're focused on, start to finish, getting jobs done. We have a good little office staff here. We've got a project manager who kind of helps manage the builders. We've got I don't know what he does. He's a jack of all trades that sort of manages all the financial pieces. We've got an operations manager, and then we have a design coordinator.
Wow.
That handles our, client relationships, selections coordinator, Sandy Hewitt. She does a great job. And then, my function is I kind of develop business, make sure that our clients are happy. I'm very big on communication, so make sure that guys are communicating the right way. And then obviously I spend a good bit of time on job sites, not as much as I used to, because it's more business management now, but it's great. My guess is we do 20 to 25 projects a year in Charlotte. Kiawah is actually a little bit bigger, to be fair. We probably have somewhere between 32 and 36 homes under construction at any given time in Kiawah. Similar office-ish down there. We've got 10 employees down there, more heavily focused on the building down there, where we have 6 builders. We have a design coordinator. We have an estimator, a project manager who kind of manages our clients. And then we have a director of construction who sort of oversees the builders, but he also his deal is he kind of just handles issues and, day-to-day stuff as it happens in the field. That's kind of our business model. It's been really successful, and we're always learning.
Yeah.
We're always trying to get better. It's not an easy business, what we do. We're dealing with, besides people's children, their homes are probably the most important thing they have in their lives. And it's a sensitive thing. And we try to kind of deal with, just making sure that the experience is a good experience. Quality is obviously going to be the most important thing from the perspective of doing a good job for our clients. But what I've realized over the years is that the quality is going to be there. It's the experience that most of our clients are consumed with. And,
interesting.
And, from like scheduling to communication to, it's hard. COVID made things harder. It takes longer than it used to. Our sub base is strained, as a whole in both communities. So, managing expectations and making sure that our clients are comfortable with our process is a big deal for us.
Wow. Fascinating. Well, I think that's a good overview of the modern day. If you want to go back in time a little bit and paint the picture of kind of how you got here, I was reading one article, something about you finish school and then one of your buddies asks you to go on the Appalachian Trail, and then you end up as a home builder.
Yeah,
I can paraphrase that. Yeah. So what's the story?
So I went to Chapel Hill.
Yep.
Got out of college. I was never going to be a sit behind the desk kind of guy. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. Moved to Charleston for what ended up being about a year. Got a job, waiting tables. Lived with a couple buddies from college. MUSC actually purchased, we lived above a dentist office, and MUSC purchased our building from the dental practice. And so as part of that, they wanted to use our upstairs spaces as business office. So we got evicted.
Okay.
But it was a conversation. They came to us and said, look, we really need you guys to get out of here, vacate. We'll pay you a little bit of money if you just tell us the number to leave, to cut your lease by several months. And so we gave a number. They agreed to it. My brother-in-law and my older sister were actually on the Appalachian Trail at the time. And so they were reaching out to me regularly or so forth and so on. And so once we got evicted, I went and met them at Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And then I was going to finish the Appalachian Trail with them and then come back and then I was going to do the second half on the way back home.
Wow.
We were in Duncannon, Pennsylvania. We'd done what's called a slack pack. So we'd hiked about 27 miles and my brother-in-law ruptured a disc in his back. And so we had to come home early. And as we're driving home, my brother-in-law is an incredible craftsman.
Is he?
Oh, he's incredible. And he works with me now.
Who's this, Art?
Yeah, Art. He's my director of construction here now. And incredible craftsman, probably should have been a cabinet maker. He's a guy who, way back then wasn't so concerned about making money as like just doing really pretty stuff. And so he had a small business. And as we're driving home, he's like, while you're figuring it out, why don't you come work with me? Uh-huh. And I was like, sure. So started building decks. We did remodels. We did small stuff. We probably had more fun than we had like
money, maybe
creating a great business. And so it was, it was fine, but we weren't making any money. And, I ended up going and getting another job, and he sort of continued the business and became a stay-at-home dad. And then I went and got a job at Ferguson. They sell appliances and plumbing and all kinds of stuff. And they needed a guy who'd done some construction and wanted him to be a sales guy. So I went and did that. And then one of my clients from Ferguson hired me to start a residential business. And that's Herd Rats Love.
Okay. Yeah.
So they wanted to start a residential business. They liked me. I think they thought I was just good at sales. Uh-huh. And so they hired me to start this little residential business inside their business, which, from the day I started to when I left, really turned into a really successful business.
Wow.
Yeah.
So to stop there, so Herd at the time was a commercial builder. Were they multifamily, office? What did they build?
Office, upfits. We did the trust building, which is downtown. I mean, it was kind of mid-level to, our biggest job was probably $5-6 million for them. Two great guys. But mostly upfits. Steve Ratzlaff was kind of the main construction guy, and Bill Hurd was the other partner, and sort of he focused on his stuff. But I had my own little business. Didn't really commingle with
the rest,
what they were doing. But it became profitable, and it became, I would argue, the more profitable piece of the business at the time.
So how did you start it exactly? They said, hey, we want to roll out this residential thing. Like, what does that mean?
So they had two projects that they were working on.
Got it.
So Bill had relationships, and he had these two little residential jobs that he was doing that he didn't want to mess with. And so they wanted somebody to come in and help finish those two jobs and then somewhat grow the business from there, which is what I did. So I got there and we had two jobs, and then pretty quickly we probably had 8 to 10 jobs, and I started to grow a staff like internally. And so like all the guys that actually worked for me at Herd ended up coming with me when I moved my business over.
Very cool.
Yeah. And I mean, I can kind of tell you how
Absolutely.
So it went on.
So you started there in 2003, and then you wind up buying the division in 12.
Well,
maybe?
so what we did, yes, so in 11, in 12, I just had twins.
Oh wow!
Right, and and I just become a partner. They'd given me a small piece of Herd Ratzlaff, and it was funny because we went through it took a long time to get all that put together, and I felt bad because they spent some money on attorneys and getting it all together. And then kind of at the end of 12, I just sat down with my wife and I was like, unfortunately, I think my income at the time is capped at what it is. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be, I'll make a good living, but I'm never going to make what I feel like I need to, kind of take care of my family and sort of do some of the stuff that I wanted. And so I just said, I was like, would you consider letting me go out on my own? I mean, you got to think we have 6-month-old kids. Yeah. I had a steady income. She wasn't going to go back to work. And so she was like, yeah, she's like, I think you could do it. So I went to them and I was like, I'd like to go out on my own. I love y'all as a business, but I think that's what I want to do. And I think the timing was good because I think that they kind of realized that having a commercial business tied to a residential business isn't ideal, particularly when more people are starting to know the residential piece more than the commercial piece. Right. And so it made sense. They were like, yeah, I think that's probably good for us. So we kind of, what we did was an asset purchase agreement where I had, probably 10 jobs under construction.
Interesting.
And so we sort of put a value on what those jobs were going to earn. And then we figured out a split of those, and I paid them what that split was.
Wow.
So I took the business. I took all the employees that were on the residential side except one guy because he had kind of started with them and it made sense that he stayed with them. And then, with 8 jobs and, probably at the time we probably had 7 people, maybe 6 people. I found an office to lease. I had a buddy, who I approached and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is a guy who I lived with who's an incredible guy and he's been with me for forever. Been great friends forever. And I was like, listen, I need some capital. I said, I have enough work to pay everybody and to, make it through a year. But if for some reason we weren't able to get more work or whatever it may be, I'd need some capital just like for a rainy day, which he agreed to. So he has a small percentage of ownership of Knight Residential Group.
Very cool.
And I've never touched his money.
Yeah.
Sat in a savings account for 10 years now. Because truthfully, when we opened our doors, we started to get work.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was the idea? Was that was kind of just more capital on the side to keep the employees paid through the time?
Like just to cover payroll for, a period of time. And, I gave him he and I just sort of figured out what that equates to versus, and he's got a little, just very small ownership piece, but he still has it.
Cool.
And in turn, when I started my Kiawah business, so 2 different entities.
Yep.
I wasn't actually probably required to, but I also gave him interest in the Kiawah business, which was ended up probably being very beneficial to him because it's been a good business,
I would say.
Yeah.
So 13, you start the business, and what was that first year? We'll get to the Charleston expansion, maybe 14, but you said you had business coming in right away. So like post recession, those next 5 years we have recovery, obviously, but that 12, 13 mark, home sales and development start to pick up again.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Was it as hard as you thought it would be going out on your own, or was it like where you're like, oh wow, we actually have, we already have a good brand, like we can get new
we did have a good brand. I mean, and I'm from Charlotte, so I know people, and I've got a lot of good friends. We started to get calls immediately. We didn't get a whole bunch of like new construction calls immediately, which is fine. Mm-hmm. And then my partner, or whatever you want to call him, he and I decided that we were going to build a spec house, which would have got us.
How big?
It was probably 4,500 feet. It was over in Cotswold. We got a really great deal. We bought 2 lots. We bought 3 lots in Cotswold on this street that during the recession had just died. Like empty lot set for 5-6 years.
Got a good price on them.
Yeah, we stole them. Yeah. Which, whatever. I mean, we gave them what they wanted, but
Absolutely.
at the time it was a steal. And my partner was funding them. So it was a good deal. I was building them. He was funding them. We kind of split the profits separately of Knight Residential Group. And, we sold the first house really quickly. Then we sold the second house really quickly, like under construction. Then we sold the third house really quickly. Mm-hmm. And that truly kind of got us in the new construction market where people saw what we were building, and it just kind of sprinted from there.
And were those like still custom luxury projects, or this?
Yeah, I mean, they were probably back then. So this is probably 2014. They sold for between $1.4 million and $1.6 million.
Wow.
And they were, today they probably sell for $2.5 million, mm-hmm. maybe if not more. We built for a lot less back then too. Yeah. Like our price per square foot it's crazy how much that has increased over
What do you
years.
think it was then?
I think probably my cost was probably $165 a foot. And now, for not too different finishes than we do now, and now we're probably like cost is probably $350 to $350 a foot depending on the house. But those really got us our foot in the door, and then we had a guy over in Foxcroft who gave us an opportunity and built a house for him and so forth and so on, and it's gone really, really well.
This episode of The Deal Ranch is brought to you by Reed's Jewelers. If you're looking for a new watch, Reed's has it. They have a large selection of fine Swiss timepieces from Omega, IWC, Breitling, Grand Seiko, Tudor, and Tag Heuer. Since 1946, Reed's has been devoted to customer service and quality. Find a Reed's store near you or shop online at reeds.com. That's REEDS.com by clicking the link in the show notes. So after those first couple, when you started on your own, was there ever a plan to, I guess you were doing anything you could, especially with newborn kids, to make money, obviously, but did you ever think about developing a neighborhood or doing any development? Just one.
Always been a single always been a single project guy. Mostly infill Charlotte. I used to have a rule that I didn't go south of Fairview, which I still don't really. And like where my house is, I would say, 100% of our projects in Charlotte are probably within, 2.5 miles of my house.
Wow. Interesting.
And probably, 3 miles from here, maybe 4 miles from here max. So like we are literally, we are South Park centric. Like South Park is kind of South Park. So we're 4 or 5 neighborhoods that circle South Park, kind of going towards town, not south of town. And we have literally worked in those same 5 neighborhoods for 13 years and haven't really had to go outside of this, less maybe a project or two for some folks that just came to us and said, hey, like we did a project for a guy in Waxhaw on his farm, mm-hmm. but he was a client in Charlotte in one of these neighborhoods. Makes sense. Like we would do stuff like that. We did something at the lake for a guy, which is hard for us because Kiawah is different. Like everybody, like I have 5 builders, but each of those builders is on a street, and that's where they build. Oh, wow. So they get out of their car and they walk up and down the street all day. Here we're traveling from mm-hmm. job to job, so it's a little more complicated when you spread a guy out, 10 miles, and he can't be at 2 places at once.
100%. So speaking of that transition, so you did really well starting out, and you had this brand that you were able to, get some jobs and get some deals early on.
Yep.
How did the Kiawah transition come to be? Because it's obviously a long way from home, so to speak, in some regard. And you guys have done so well there in recent years.
Yeah.
And we were chatting before, maybe even said it on here, but a bulk of the business that you guys are doing is down there. So how did that transition come to be, and what was the thought process to expand there? So
I grew up with one of the Kiawah partners.
Oh, okay.
So Kiawah traded back in 2012, and I grew up with the managing partner of the real estate group that bought Kiawah. And, they had some, we call it built for sale, but so they had some land that was sort of dedicated to them doing spec projects. Call it 200 lots.
Yep.
They had 1,000 lots on Kiawah when they bought it. Say there's 200 lots, maybe not quite that many, that they had sort of dedicated and said, we're going to do like a built for sale, which means they hired 4 or 5 of the best architects in the country, and they created these beautiful homes. And so they were trying to like make each lot sort of site specific.
Oh.
And so they were going to people and saying, hey, look, we've already got this developed. We're going to save you the trouble of having to go through the design process, and we got an end price. We got a builder, and you don't have to do a whole lot. You sort of reduce the amount of selections. It was trying to make it easy for people that were coming from out of town to build a house without having it become this huge custom deal. Yeah. Right.
And this was for the consumer, or they were doing this for the builder? Were they drawing these plans to get a new builder to build it, or they were drawing these plans to say, hey, do you want to buy this house?
That's right.
Okay.
The second version. It was for the consumer.
Okay.
I think the struggle was that they were interviewing a bunch of builders down there, and they couldn't get the price of construction in Kiawah was really, really expensive, right?
Besides what, outside of the dirt? Just logistics of getting, okay.
Few things. I mean, they're very specific about what their exterior materials are for homes. You know, you're at the coast. So you've got to deal with coastal stuff. You know, hurricane. They're also, you know, Charleston sits on a seismic plate, which people probably don't know. But so you also got to worry about earthquakes and stuff like that. I mean, you don't really worry about it, but from a construction standpoint, you have to build.
It changes foundation.
You have to build to the standards of it. And I mean, truthfully, I think that it's just a long way down Main Road.
Yeah.
Right. And so the trades sort of they sort of dominate the market more than the builder dominates the market. Right. So we can't control their pricing as much as we probably can here because everything's easy to get to. You know, you have a guy that's driving an hour every day to go to work.
He names the price
in a really strong market. Wow. He certainly does. And so because they were struggling finding a builder that could hit the price point, let's call it, I had one of the Kiawah partners reached out to me and said, hey, we know you, your friend. Do you mind just pricing this job for us and figuring out what you would charge to build this house? Like in the Charlotte market. And I was like, sure. And then I started thinking, I was like, so I called him back. I was like, why are you asking me to do this? And he explained the situation. And I was like, listen, if I can get to a number that is, you know, competitive, or you guys think that it's realistic, would you consider letting me build on Kiawah? My wife is from Charleston. I have family ties down there. So like being in that market made some sense for us because we have family close, and yeah, it's pretty easy to get down there. So I didn't think much of it. And so, I mean, it took us a year probably to go back and forth. And I kind of finally got my pricing to a good point, and they were like, look, we'd like you to come down here. We've got another company that we're going to also include, but we want you to come down and build a house or two. And I was like, sounds fabulous. And so we broke ground, and like right when we broke ground, the other builder, for some reasons that we don't need to discuss, got out of it, just wasn't part of the deal anymore. And what I think that the Kiawah partners realize is that it's hard to sell stuff off paper, but once you start to construct a house, it becomes a little less complicated to sell a house because people visually can see something, right? Yeah. So we got a couple of houses out of the ground. The next thing you know, we got 8 homes that they've sold on this one specific little development, and I had one builder. Like I found a guy. So we very quickly became overwhelmed because we had more work than we were expecting. So then I shifted gears a little bit and started growing a business down there. Wow. Spent 60% of my time in Kiawah.
Oh, no way.
With 1-year-olds. Right. It was not easy. And then, so then I got to that business to a really good spot. COVID was really good for Kiawah. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but it was.
A lot of the Southeast was.
Yeah, right. I mean, people realize that living in an apartment in New York or Chicago, wherever it is not as much fun as being at the beach in Kiawah playing golf and still being able to work, right? Yeah. So, you know, COVID, I mean, I literally thought we were going to shut the door. Like in February, like in March, I was in Kiawah for spring break with my family. School got canceled. Everything got canceled. We stayed. And I looked at my wife and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, nobody's coming to work. We're going to have to shut down the business because it's scary. And then, so of course, you know, then we became essential. So we were able to go back to work. And then, you know, 3 months later, I was hiring people because they had just sold so much stuff over that period of time. So, and it hadn't stopped. I mean, Kiawah's been a pretty aggressive market over the last probably 4 years. It's been
Absolutely.
great.
So when you said about the Kiawah partners, they said, hey, or you guys found out jointly or conjunctively that it was easier to sell a home when it was built.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's a spec deal. No? Okay.
Until it gets a client.
Okay.
So we were starting spec houses for the Kiawah partners.
Got it.
But they would very quickly sell the home. Then we would get a client immediately. Right. And then they could make some modifications to the home, but not really a ton. But they got to make all the selections.
Wow.
So I very quickly hired a design coordinator down there who would then meet with the clients and help get all the selections made. So in essence, I mean, we built probably 130 homes on Kiawah.
Wow.
And we may have finished 2 of them without a client.
Interesting.
Yeah. So every home is a custom house, and these houses are incredible. And so the nice thing about it is, there's probably, maybe 12, 13 different models of homes that we can build. We've built every single one of them. So when a client comes in, they can take them to that house and say, this is the base model of the house
that you're interested in.
There's 15 options that you can do. So every house becomes its own unique little house. But it starts with like a base product.
Interesting. So in that scenario, were you just coming in as the builder? Or were you taking down these lots yourself? Okay. Wow.
Nope. I'm a fee builder, so I get hired by Kiawah partners, and then and typically what would end up happening is they would pre-sell. So like the pre-selling started pretty quickly. Like they're selling lots with a house plan on it. So we have just given the Kiawah partners a price for the build.
Sure.
They would sell the lot and then get out of the way, and then we would then contract with the client, and then we would build them a house.
Oh, fascinating.
Which is smart because the developer doesn't want to be tied into the construction of the project. So it really became a situation where they were just selling dirt.
They're selling to the customer. To the customer's contracting you.
Customers contracting me. They would then sit with the architect, and while they had a base that they had to start with, they could make. I mean, we had all kinds of options: pools, adding second story. I mean, there was plenty of stuff. So it actually became more complicated than the way we do it in Charlotte, because in Charlotte we have a client that either comes to us with a house plan, or I build a spec house and I design the house.
Yeah, pretty
simple, not a lot of changes. The Kiawah model became complicated because everybody was making changes. So that we were now, it was more a time constraint because they would have to kind of start from scratch, get the house redesigned. So we were just having to hold their hands through the process and then get to construction.
What was the price point range in that market for you guys?
Kiawah or Charlotte?
Kiawah. I assume higher than the market here. No.
I would say like on average. Yes. I recently sold a house in Charlotte that is higher than any, like a spec house in Charlotte that will be more expensive than any of the houses I built in Kiawah. But I would say that our price point in Kiawah for like completed project with land, when we started was probably in the $2.5 million range, and now it's probably in the 4.5.
Wow.
So we're probably anywhere between probably 3.5 to 4.5 now, maybe a little more sometimes on Kiawah. And we're not too far away from that in Charlotte, honestly. Yeah. But now, in Kiawah, we're not building anything bigger than 4,000 feet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like smaller, like more quaint, really well designed houses. In Charlotte, we might build something that's 7,500 feet.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating.
Yeah.
How did the business evolve over time? So earlier on, you talked about doing maybe more renovation work. Are you guys doing any?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We still do it here. Okay. I mean, not really in Kiawah. We'll do a job for a friend every now and again. We still have a division here that does remodels. Okay. It's a business that'll always be there.
Yeah.
So we're going to still stay focused on it.
Yeah.
New construction is easier because you sort of know exactly what your pricing is and you can manage timing better.
Yeah.
Remodels tend to be a little bit more complicated, but we probably have 6 or 7 remodels going on at a time. And we will never stop that because at some point in time, I hope it doesn't happen, but the new construction market will probably slow a little bit, and we're not going to get away from remodels because we want to stay in that business.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So jumping back to this Charlotte market, what is kind of end to end the process? Because I was talking to Sandy before you got here, and she is designed for the team, right? But you guys
design meaning selections.
That's right,
not home design.
Correct.
Right.
But your team doesn't do interior design. Like you're not picking out curtains and stuff.
No, we don't do furniture.
So what is the I'll go one step before that. What is the source of most of your deals? Is it referral at this point for people? They're coming to you and they're saying, "Hey, Vernon, we have a lot picked out," or like, "Hey, can you find us a lot?"
I'd say there's probably 3 different scenarios.
Yeah, walk through.
One, a client knows who we are. They've either decided to tear their own house down, or they've gone out and bought a lot in a neighborhood in Charlotte and said, "We want to build a house. We want to do a remodel." They hire an architect, go through the process. They come to us and say, "Hey, we've got a set of plans. We like your work. We know folks that have used you, et cetera, et cetera. We'd like you to price this out for us, and see if we can work together.
Cool.
Understand your process, et cetera, et cetera." So
they're coming to you. They have plans. Can you build this?
Yeah.
Cool.
Or we have an architect that we worked with that has a client, and we'll say to client, "Hey, we designed the house. We think you should call Vernon because he'll do a great job."
That's number 2.
That's number 2.
Okay.
Or I buy a house, tear it down, start design on a spec, and then typically we will sell a spec, either off paper or pretty close to when we start, and then we'll finish it for a client.
Wow.
So we very rarely taken a house to the end and then try to sell it. It's always kind of pre-sold or sold prior to construction completion.
Wow. I think that's how we got connected originally, Robin, at United Bank, where a lot of our episodes come from, United Bank.
That's right.
But connected us, I think, in that model. So I would love to chat through that. So this market has become challenging to find lots in. Is that how you kind of... Okay, so walk through kind of from COVID. We'll get to that deal story, so to speak, in a minute. But so from COVID till current, how has this market changed for you as a home builder? Like with the demand and then obviously interest rates.
I think interest rates haven't been such a challenge. I mean, I think it's a challenge, a little bit for us on the spec side because we do put debt on it, and so our debt went from being very inexpensive to now it's expensive. So now it's more timing, like trying to get stuff. You buy a house, you start to develop plans, so you start spending money immediately. I mean, that might take 6 months. At a minimum, even just to get to permitting. So depending on how quickly you have to close and
6 months to get to permitting.
Like to get a set of plans that are permittable.
Okay. In which scenario would this be?
This is just
the tear down.
This is the tear down.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. And so for us. This was just talking about interest rates, trying to expedite things because if we have a 30-day close, which, a year ago, you wouldn't get a house if it wasn't a 30-day close. And things have changed a little bit
100%.
now. But so you would have to close immediately, start designing. Engineering would take 2 months by itself. Yeah. So by the time you got engineered plans, you're 6 months in. If you close in 30 days, $1 million house now costs you $6,000-$7,000 a month to carry before you even break ground. So you've $40,000 before you started. Yeah. So that's how interest rates have challenged us. I think on the consumer side, in our playing field, I don't think interest rates are as big of a factor as they are for guys that like me who are putting debt on homes. I think our challenge is that
the growth in the market,
the land cost are the biggest challenge for us. I think that finding good lots for one is tough, and we try to be. We're not doing 30 specs at a time, man. We're doing like 2 or 3. So we're pretty conservative about the streets that we work on. We don't want tricky lots. We want decent lots that somebody's going to say, "Hey, I want to live here." Yeah. Right. And just finding that is hard. And if you do find it, people know that there's value to dirt in infill Charlotte, and so we're paying 2.5 times what we used to pay. I mean, 4 years ago, what we were paying for the same piece of dirt.
Wow. So with the complexity, just due to demand of the Southeast and especially this market, lots become hard to find. At what point did you stumble upon the idea for the buy and tear down? And then how did this kind of model come to be? Or was this something you guys had been doing for a while?
Yeah, I mean, we've done it for a minute. I mean, the two lots that we did, and the first 3 specs we did in Cotswold were a little bit of an aberration because they were vacant lots.
Okay. Yeah.
The areas that we want to build in Charlotte, there's no vacant lots. There's no land. There's no land. Yeah. So everything that we do is we're either buying a property and tearing down a house or someone else's. Okay. And that's just the way that it is.
All of them now?
All of them. Every single. I mean, I've done 3 projects in my life in Charlotte that started with an empty lot, and those were the first 3 specs.
So how do you focus on the third model of you guys buying out and specking the home?
Yeah. How
do you identify what makes a good lot? What's the source of that deal? Are you on a realtor.com?
I would say 90% of the time the homeowner is calling me.
Oh.
And saying, I've been here for 30 years.
Yep.
Right. We see your signs. You're building a house next door. Mm-hmm. We're ready to move to the Cypress or whatever it may be, or our kids live out of town. We're going to move closer to them, and we'd like to consider you coming and buying the property. And so we'll meet with them and go talk to them, and a lot of times it works out. We also have I'd say 5 or 6 realtors that we really like.
Okay.
That we work with on a regular basis that will push opportunities to us.
And then, so homeowners are coming to you knowing that this market needs people. Like this is
homeowners are coming to us knowing that they live in a house that is probably a tear down.
Okay.
Which is not.
What's the price point on that house? Do you think that a lot of these tear downs?
I mean, we just paid $2 million for a lot. We got another one that we just paid $1.9 million for. I mean, it's expensive.
And then how do you evaluate the tear down cost for you guys? Because you're kind of developing this deal.
No, not kind of.
You're 100% developing 100%. This deal.
Yeah. We know what our we know what our cost to build is,
and including demo of the
demo of the house is pretty reasonable. Okay. So I kind of work everything backwards. I say, all right, this is what I need to pay for this land. This is what I need to put on it. Size, pool, all the stuff. Mm-hmm. I kind of put it in my brain. This is what it's going to cost me to build.
Yeah.
Now I have to generate a sales price for this house.
Interesting.
And so that's kind of what we've done. We've got a sort of percentage that we want to try to cover if we can, mm-hmm. like anybody. It doesn't always work. I think our big thing is because we always sell things so far in advance, we probably leave money on the table. Mm. But bird in the hand.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in this market.
I don't want to get stuck with a house and have to go to the bank at the end of the day. So, so we just kind of come up and we'd say, hey, like conservatively, this is what we'd like to get. Like I said, we're not trying to hit home runs. We like singles and doubles.
Yep.
And if we can make a good clip on a home and feel confident that we've done it, and also build a beautiful house mm-hmm. and improve the neighborhood and put something out there that people respect.
Yeah.
Then we get other opportunities. So it's not only is it a money making opportunity, but it's also a marketing opportunity. Mm. We got a sign in the yard. We're doing a good job. We're keeping a clean job site. The house is beautiful. So people come to us and say, "Man, I really like the work you do. Wow. Can we hire you to build a house?" And we say, "Sure."
So end to end that process, I know we kind of lightly walked over it there, but so you buy someone, homeowner comes to you and says, "Hey, Vernon, do you want to buy this?" From that close to when are you able to start construction? So after demo's done, when are you guys able to start building?
Probably, what's the timeline? I mean, if we're lucky, from when we close on the property, mm-hmm. probably 6 months.
Wow.
And then it's another probably...
And then what's that process in detail? So as soon as you start building the spec home, at what point you find an architect, something that you want to design it, your guys start building. How does the marketing process of that home get started?
I put a sign in the yard.
Oh, that's it.
My construction sign.
Wow.
And, probably, I'd say 60 to 70% of the time I'll get a phone call from someone.
Huh.
And say, "Hey, I saw your signs in the yard. Is that a house you're selling or is that a house you're building for somebody?" If it's a house I'm selling, I'll tell them and they'll come meet. We'll go through it and, we find the right buyer. We'll sell the house in advance. We do ever so often get a real estate agent involved on the front end and we don't put it on the market, but we say, "Hey, look, if we get to a point where we need to list the house, I'd like you to do it. So let's get you involved. They'll kind of quietly market it to folks, and we'll find some opportunities there.
And if it doesn't sell through them, do you pay them a fee or just kind of relationship?
If it does sell through them?
If it does not, but they've been quietly working on it.
If I engage them, I'll pay them for something.
That makes sense.
No, and so what I have done sometimes is if I engage them and then all of a sudden somebody calls me off my sign and I sell a house, I'll be like, look, I've sold the house. If you'll help me with paperwork and all that stuff, then we can figure out some way to compensate. And if not, then we pay them their commission that they've asked for, because if they do some work, then I feel like that they deserve it.
Sure. What does in the space that you're building in this, for these examples, right? You're paying $1.5 or $2 million to tear down. The price point's obviously $3, $4, $5 million for these custom homes, I would assume.
Depends.
Okay.
I would say in the areas where we are working, probably 3.5 to 7.
Okay. So 3.5 to 7, that customer probably wants a custom home, but
yes.
You're already building out something. Hey, I'm the home buyer. I'm interested in this. What is the change order? Like what is there a custom component where they're
yes.
coming in, it's halfway built, walk through how does that work?
Well, that's harder. Like we have one now where we're getting ready
tricky
to go contractual, and house is framed. We've got through rough ends. We're getting ready to drywall, and they've come in and they want to make some
big-ish
meaningful changes to the home. So you kind of have to stop, assess their changes. We'll price the changes for them, which will all be sort of wound into the overall.
Are they
price.
under contract at this point, though?
I mean,
because you're kind of making changes. You're still paying interest, but there's no deal done.
We won't start making changes until they're under contract.
Got it. Okay.
But we will sit down and discuss changes, and we'll price them quickly, and we'll give them a ballpark. And so, we won't really engage on any work until we are contractual, but we do stop.
That's a cost.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have right now we're doing one that we probably stopped 3 weeks ago, and they're making changes, and we're trying to get it all kind of ironed out, which we have, and it's great, but it's meaningful.
Yeah.
You want it to be as expeditious as it can be, but at the same time, like, these are great people. Mm-hmm. It's my neighborhood where I'm building the spec house. I very much would like them to be my neighbor. It's a beautiful house. It fits them perfectly. So I'm willing to pause for a minute to make it work out. And I can read a situation well. Like, I know if somebody's serious or not. And these people are very serious. They have a situation where they do need to get a house in a certain location. The house is perfect. So, stopping for a minute and assessing and making sure that everybody's comfortable, it all works out.
Yeah. Well, kind of part of the business to build a good reputation for you too.
You think so?
What do you think is the most challenging part about your business? And you can talk about it. We talked about the 3 different types of deals or projects you'll build, but
you talk about just from a construction standpoint, or just running a
just
business?
In the market in the construction luxury custom home space. Like, what is the biggest challenge for you running the business? Or finding new projects. Like, what is the hardest part about it? We'll talk about just delivery first. So just
I think the hardest part for us is just timing. Honestly, like, it's it used to be that you would call a guy and say, "Hey, we're ready for you. We need you next week," and you'd be like, "No problem." Now it's like you got to call them 8 weeks in advance, and the problem with that is, you have to deliver everything that you had to do up to the 8 weeks for him to be able to start. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
Right. And so the problem is if all that's not done, and you're ready and you're supposed to bring this guy in, but you're not ready to bring him in. And then he's like, well, I got to go here. And now it's going to be another 3 weeks. So it is, the sub base in Charlotte, while it's great, and we've used the same guys for almost 20 years now, they also work for other people.
Yeah.
You have to respect that. People need to make a living. I can't keep guys busy 100% of the time. And so, they're going to have other responsibilities, and you have to be patient with it. And it's just that has become a challenge. But our homeowners, whom are all wonderful, they want progress to be made every single day, as do I.
Of course.
Right? It costs me money. It costs me money to manage. It costs me money to pay. It costs me money to do all this stuff. So I want progress every single day. It's just not realistic. And the challenge is, to me, people understand. Like, our clients are unbelievable. and they get it. And if you just communicate it to them, they will understand.
Right.
The problem is oftentimes our guys are so focused on managing stuff in the field that we don't necessarily communicate as well as we always can. And so frustration mounts.
To the home buyer or back to you?
To the home buyer.
Okay.
And if it came to me,
you would.
I would do it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always come to me. I don't always know, we have enough work where I don't know every single thing. I don't know all the nuances all the time. But everybody works on it, and we are improving that piece of our business all the time. So we do a pretty good job. We're also, if you're in our business, you have to be an optimist, right? You have to think
about what, market cycles,
finishing projects, right?
Okay.
We oftentimes give people best case, instead of worst case, where we should probably give worst case and then finish earlier, and then everybody's really happy. But we think that we can. We've gotten we've performed so many miracles over the years of getting people into their houses when they had to get in them, that you become, you kind of think that you can make everything happen. And it's not always the case. So the times when it doesn't happen, you're like, golly, if I just been a little bit more realistic about timing instead of optimistic. But I don't think you could be in our business if you weren't optimistic and felt like you could get it all done.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest challenge is on the business development side? So that's obviously the delivery side. Is it extraordinarily hard to, hey, home buyer comes to you and says, hey, Vernon, we love your work. We want you to build, and you just can't find a lot that makes sense for the price point of home they want you to build?
I think so that scenario is less. People don't typically come to me. Every now and again, somebody will come to me and say, hey, can you help me find a lot? But historically, they already have that stuff in.
Okay.
I think the biggest challenge. Let me see. What's the biggest challenge with? Ask me the question one more time.
So
I'm thinking.
We talked about biggest challenge for the delivery side, so the construction process. Yeah. What are the biggest challenges outside of construction? So either business development or call it larger operations for the company.
I think that, I do want to say this. I think that like our business is really weird. Like, it's a lot about timing. It's about luck. Like we'll go 3 months and we'll have 16 calls and we'll get 6 jobs and you're like, oh my God, this is wonderful. And then we'll have a period of 3 months where we won't get any calls. And you're trying to figure out what we're doing wrong. Like, what are we doing? And I think it's just kind of the luck of the business. And, there's other great builders in Charlotte and we're not going to get them all. And they're going to call other people. And, that's kind of part of it. I think the most frustrating part about my business or what we do is that, we don't bid stuff as often as we used to. Like people will come to us now and say, hey, I just want you to build a house for us. Let's partner up and figure it out. That's a great situation.
That's what you do now.
That's what we try to do, right? Like, so we're not getting people aren't coming and saying, hey, I've got 4 people looking at it.
Interesting. And
you price against 3 and we'll figure it out, right? Yeah. That's from our perspective. I think we've gotten to a point where we've sort of outgrown is not the right word, but just people want to hire us. We're choosing our clients.
That's fair.
Like they're choosing us. But there is a situation where we have somebody that comes and says, hey, I've got 3 people looking at it.
Now, are they not to interrupt you, are they bringing you plans? Like, hey, we already have it drawn. What's your price?
That's right.
Interesting.
That's right.
And so your time to deliver maybe too.
Yeah. Okay. And your process and let's meet the team. And so
to interrupt, but
that's okay. And so they may have 3 people looking at it. Mm-hmm. I think what people don't understand, and we don't charge to price work. Mm-hmm. Like some people are charging to put an estimate together, but we don't do that. We just think it's a cost of doing business.
Right.
I think what people don't understand is it's a tremendous amount of work that we do just on the pricing side. It's hours. Chandler Haney, who does our estimating, he spends, 2-3 weeks on pricing a project, and it's complicated. And so the only time that I get frustrated is when we do a ton of work for people and they don't have the courtesy to call me and say we've hired somebody else.
Right.
And I find out because I go drive by the property and there's a house under construction. Mm. And, it's okay. We get it. We're big boys, but you're kind of like, golly, just a thanks for the time. Appreciate your hard work.
Right.
Would not have been the worst thing in the world. But
nature of the beast in any business development or sales, right? On the customer side. Interesting. in lightly wrapping up here a little bit, what do you think? Being anywhere in the real estate business is obviously a large challenge, no matter where you fall in, whether it's banking or building. And to survive these market cycles, obviously 2008 through this market, you were obviously at the other company, but expanding to a new market, what do you think as a custom builder, where there's, in some respect, I don't want to say low barrier to entry, but there's a lot of other builders in this market.
For sure.
Right. What has been a competitive advantage for you guys, and what do you think you've done maybe better, or to stay in business certainly is a huge accomplishment, but to do very well like you have is bigger. What do you think you focus on individually that's allowed you to make it through these market cycles? And two, what do you think overall is competitive advantage for the company, or maybe for your customers? What do people come to you for?
You're going to think this is weird. One, our quality is impeccable.
How do you define that?
Like the quality of work, like we do things in our homes that I think other builders don't necessarily do. Like we don't use any MDF material. Everything for us is like straight one poplar. So we're trying to use the highest quality of materials, and I would say that, but while keeping our pricing in line with folks that may not be doing this stuff. And I'm not saying
seems hard to do.
Yeah, but I mean, it's we probably don't make as much money.
Got it. Okay.
You know what I mean? We're probably sacrificing a little bit of, a couple of points to what I would say do higher quality stuff. Honestly, man, I think we're nice. Like everybody that works for me is an incredibly nice person. And I think it goes a long way with our clients, because I think that our clients think that we're good people and they like to be around us and they like to work with us. We also don't say no. Mm-hmm. Like if you came to me, my client, and said, I'd like to do this. Like we want to change this up and we want to add this. It may be impossible, but we're going to figure it out. And we're going to do it. And it may cost you some money, right? But we're not going to say, no, it's too late, or we're past that point, or you're going to impact the schedule too much. We're going to say, no problem. We're going to do it. These are the ramifications. This is the cost. This is what it may add a little time to the cycle, whatever it may be. But we're not going to say no.
Wow.
And people appreciate that. I mean, I think people appreciate people that are willing to do whatever we can to make a project as successful for them as possible, but do it with a smile on our face and do it in a kind way, in a nice way, and do it effectively.
Wow. Anything else that is you in wrapping up? Last couple questions for you. But is there anything we missed about the company story or your story or where you're at in the market, or anything that deserves a shout out, so to speak?
I mean,
as far as focus.
Well, I mean, I think that my wife deserves a lot of credit, to be honest. I mean, not only was she our operations manager for a long time, but she's wicked smart. Mm-hmm. And she sort of did a lot of the stuff behind the scenes that I am not good at. She has since sort of moved out of that role because she's taking care of our family, and I've hired a operations guy that kind of things are running smooth. And it's hard. We have two businesses. It's hard. It's complicated. Our business is a complicated business. And so I think that it's, both Joelle, who's my wife, and then our operations guy, Zach, have done a tremendous job bringing everything together. What I have found over the years is that it's hard to manage people. Not from I can manage personalities, and I can manage problems, and I can help guys on job sites. HR stuff is my least favorite thing in the world to do, administratively. And, the new guy who's come in and kind of operationally taken over a lot of that stuff has done an incredible job. Mm. And it's made our business way better because I am able to focus on growing the business, as opposed to how many vacation hours does an individual have?
Right. That
right.
Makes sense.
I mean, and that's not what I do. That's not what my function is, and that's not what I'm really good at. So
that's fair. So what would you say? Is there anything outside of what we discussed so far that the team is focused on now or moving forward?
No, I mean, I think I probably beat a dead horse with this, but we're just, we want to have a very good name in the Charlotte market, in the Kiawah market. We are uber focused on pleasing our clients. I think that's the best marketing tool that you can actually have. And, I tell people all the time, I was like, we're not trying to hit home runs. We just want to do good work. And I think that if we can do that, then people will continue to hire us. And we're not like a, overnight sort of one hit wonder kind of guy. We want to be here for a long time. I'm from Charlotte. I want to make my city better. I want to be here for a long time. I want people to have respect for our company. And so we just try to, that's kind of our mantra. It's kind of what we try to do.
I love it. Last two questions for you. So
Yep.
Is there any service, maybe part of construction or maybe design, I don't know, any service or any different type of real estate deal or product that market even maybe that you haven't been in that you think you would explore in the future?
Like
It's a
location
very
wise?
broad location, maybe not single family, maybe
No,
larger.
I'll always be single family.
Yeah.
I've done some multifamily stuff, and it's a little bit more challenging.
Okay.
We're breaking ground on our first house at Grandfather Mountain, which is I don't know if you've been to Grandfather, but it's a little gated community, Grandfather Country Club, little gated community, probably a top 8 golf course in North Carolina. We have my wife and I have a small little condo there, and we've had a person that was nice enough to just sort of engage me on building a house there. So we may end up like opening a business in that market potentially. I think they're in need of contractors because there's very few up there. And it's like Kiawah. I mean, it's it's a very nice location, and so I think we would probably do it well. I think the trick is, do you want to set up shop in another spot, and do you want to have a third, another, and it would be part of Knight Residential Group Inc. And I think the answer is yes. It's just complicated. It's like Kiawah. It's harder to build in those locations than it is in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. Last question for you. So who do you think along the way in your real estate career helped you the most, or who's someone you learned a lot from? Maybe.
Man, I don't know. That's a tough one. I think that my brother-in-law Art is probably the most impactful person that I've been with, because he kind of taught me everything from a construction standpoint.
Yeah.
And I'm not even close to as talented as he is on that kind of stuff. Where what differentiates me and Art, and why we're really good working together, is like, he is a building science nerd, right? Like, he is a genius, and can solve anything. He could probably do anything. I am a people person, right? I like to be in front of people. I don't mind presenting. I don't mind, a little bit of humor.
Yeah.
Goes a long way a lot of times. So I think that I do a really good job of developing the business, but I would never have gotten started, done any of the stuff in my life if it hadn't been for Art herniating his disc on the Appalachian Trail and convincing me to come work with him a little bit. So for sure.
Very cool.
He probably is the most impactful person that I know from a construction standpoint.
I think that's a great place to wrap. Is there anything else, Knight Residential Group, that you wanted to close with? But I appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you letting me do it. It's my first ever podcast. It's, we love what we do.
Yeah.
We're going to try to keep doing it. I have twins. I love one of my children to take it over. It's probably my daughter, to be fair.
Very cool.
Because she's way more into it than my son is. But, it's been great for us.
I love it. Thanks for coming on, Vernon.
Yeah, brother.
Appreciate it.